Good afternoon, everybody. Hi, my name is Jenny Bellinger. I am your host and facilitator for the Now What Business series that we are doing here live on Zoom and also on recording for those of you who might be watching on the replay. For participants who are actively in right now, just letting you guys know that there is a recording at Level Up Coach LLC.com. We have a Now What Business series page where you can watch last week's recording if you were not able to watch last week's recording. And this week will be updated and put in there probably by Thursday afternoon if you want that information again. I'm going to go through and introduce our panelists. I'm going to start with our panelist for let's see who's here right now is Carol Sparks. Carol Sparks is a business attorney with Sparks Law Office PC located in Troy, Illinois, and she will be sharing with us some business information in 2 weeks. Also with us is Kurt Rickoff. Kurt Rickoff is a CPA and is going to be presenting on some of the financial implications that we may be encountering in the next few weeks. And so he will be presenting in 3 weeks. Next week will be Joanne May with the Small Business Development Center. She is the director of the Small Business Development Center and will be helping get us some more information on the SBA loans and the PPP and the EIDL and all of the acronyms that are out there. Getting more information on that as well as some other information that she may have for small business owners for that. And then last week we had Megan Martin, who is an executive career coach, present on the mindset. Hi, everybody. Glad to see you here. And then I will be presenting on May 27th on sales calls and how to get back into those sales conversations as we get closer to being able to get back into business. So this week, though, our presenter is Marcel Brown. He is known as the most trusted name in technology. He is a nationally recognized technology expert with over 25 years of professional experience. He's been featured on multiple national TV and radio appearances, quoted for numerous published articles, and his blogs have received national attention. His research on the lost Steve Jobs speech and lost Steve Jobs mouse went viral on the internet and was subsequently spotlighted on numerous national media outlets. Having worked for large organizations such as Hearst Communications, Washington University School of Medicine, and Anheuser-Busch, Marcel has made a name for himself running his own technology services and consulting company for the last 18 years. Focused primarily on the needs of small businesses and in-home clients, Marcel is intimately familiar with the technology needs of business owners and professional people, including personal computing devices and services from Apple, Google, and Microsoft, as well as the technology required for mobile and work-from-home arrangements. Now, just to let everybody know, during the course of his presentation, I will be monitoring the chat and the Q&A section. So if you have questions for Marcel, please go ahead and put those in there and we will get those answered as quickly as possible. Just to let everybody know, Marcel and I are presenting from the same home office. So while he's speaking, I am going to be muted, but I will we have worked out a system to be able to get those questions answered in a timely fashion during his presentation. We also do have our other panelists on the line. So if you do have questions about whether it's for Kurt for CPA, for Carol for legal questions, or Joanne for small business development in this time, you are also welcome to ask those questions. And the Q&A will happen at the end of Marcel's presentation for all of our other presenters. But you are welcome to go ahead and put those questions in the Q&A or in the chat. And please just let us know who your question is for, and so that way we can address it to the right person at the end of the presentation. At this point, I am going to turn the mic over to Marcel so that way he can get started on his presentation. And everybody, I hope you enjoy while he gets going.
Well, thank you very much for that introduction, Jenny. Did you introduce yourself as a business coach?
Oh, no, I don't think I did, but thank you.
Well, ladies first, of course. So Jenny is a direct sales business coach. It's professional sales business coach in general. So you can introduce yourself later, but I just want to make sure you got your due as well. But good afternoon, everyone. As introduced, I am Marcel Brown, known as the most trusted name in technology. And full disclosure, like a lot of people on Zoom, I do have a top on, but I'm not wearing any shoes. So if I get up, you might see my socks. But at least I'm wearing socks, right? That's good. So as introduced, I have been doing technology as a professional for over 25 years. I've had my own business now for going 18 years now. So my business is an adult. So in a few years, it'll be able to drink. Now, what I have seen in the course of my career, 25 years, and even before that, when I was a kid, I've been into technology since I was a little kid. So I've seen it develop from the mid 80s through the 90s, internet evolution, social media, and then about 10 or 12 years ago when the iPhone and then the iPad were introduced, what I have coined as the new world of technology. And even through all those changes, what has happened here literally in the last 2 months is really unprecedented. And that's what I want to talk with you about today. So it's clear that the world has changed. I mean, this COVID crisis has forced businesses to adapt super quickly to a new way of working. And as you notice, I put the word new in quotes because the reality is that it's not really any new technology. It's simply that the adoption of a lot of these modern technologies has been slow to some degree. And so those businesses that had embraced this new modern technology were much better prepared to weather the storm that has just come. So now that being said, those businesses that were able to operate effectively using new technology during this crisis are actually going to be well ahead of the game coming this summer or into the fall as business returns to normal. They're going to be in much better competitive positions than businesses that are going to be slow to that, or that either have not adopted well or are not going to take the steps to adopt going forward. So this is what I want to help all of you here today, and anyone that's watching this later, understand what can you do to get up to speed in this post-COVID world of technology, because it is going to be quite a bit different. So the question's basically generally, what can you do? And really the first thing you need to do, and have this in mind for for going into the future, is you've got to commit to improving your business technology. If you don't commit to it, if you are like most people that still think of technology as some sort of necessary evil, then you're simply going to still always be behind the curve. And those businesses that are behind the curve are going to increasingly fall further and further behind as their competitors are more efficient and more productive and are able to reach more clients quicker and focus more on client satisfaction, servicing clients rather than dealing with things that aren't quite so important. So as I mentioned, I coined the phrase "the new world of technology" when it started about 10 or 12 years ago with the iPad and the iPhone and the iPad. Which technology you should use? There are so many options now in this day and age compared to, say, the 90s or the early 2000s. Yet there's still a lot of old world thinking out there. And so whatever you do, don't get stuck in the past. Don't stick yourself with 1990 era's technology when this whole new world of technology gives you so many more options. And that is what has enabled a lot of businesses to go with the flow and adapt quickly. Now, how do you implement new technology? Really, you need to work with your technology professional to develop a plan. And you're going to hear me use the phrase technology professional or technology expert or advisor many times. And the reality is, if you don't have a technology professional on your team, it's kind of like having no lawyer if you run a business. You need a lawyer to go to court. You need a lawyer to look over your documents. Most smart business owners would no way run a business without having a lawyer on retainer or a CPA or a banker. So make sure that you have a technology professional on your team. So let's talk about some specific steps you can use. And let me transition back. With your technology professional, develop a plan. Obviously, in this short time we have today, there's no way we can develop a custom plan for your business, but these next few steps are going to give you a very general overview of what you should do to get your business up to speed. So step one, you need to lay a strong technology foundation. And what does that mean? You need to review and reinforce your existing technology. So devices, number one, are you working on an old computer, from maybe 10 or 12 years old computer? Likely you need to upgrade. And it's not just for the sake of having the latest and greatest technology, it's for reliability and productivity. If you are hamstrung out of the gate, you're not going to enjoy using technology as much. It's going to be frustrating. You're going to be less productive. So you need to review what devices you're using. So like I said, old laptops, possibly upgrade. If your smartphone barely qualifies for the term smartphone, then you probably should look at something new. And the reality is that so many people now use their smartphones. You may want to look at one with a bigger screen because it is much more productive if you're going to use it for business purposes. And I do suggest that you review that. Internet services is the next thing to look at. And notice I said internet services. It's not just about the internet service in your office. It's about the internet service at your home. It's about the internet service at your employees' homes. It's about mobile internet services, so cellular type services. You need to make sure you've got a good, solid service wherever you're at. And in most cases, there's plenty of broadband technologies available today that can give you more than sufficient bandwidth to work with those. Unfortunately, there are some areas around here, especially, that are still very rural. You can't get great service. That's a tough thing to deal with. I feel for those people that live out in areas where they don't get good internet and suddenly they have to work from home and they're having a tough time. So the good news is in the near future, 5G wireless technology should develop to where you can deploy much higher internet speeds in areas that didn't have coverage or had spotty coverage before. And it may take still a little while to get here, but at least it's on the horizon. So stay on top of that knowledge. Finally, internet properties. And what do I mean by internet properties? Well, primarily your website, email, and your domain name. So if you have a website, something.com, what I have observed over the years is many clients, when I ask them, what is your domain and registration information, because I need it for whatever reason, maybe to switch their web host or set up a better email system for them. It's almost shocking how many business owners have no idea where their domain is registered, or if they do, they don't have the username or the password, and it becomes an ordeal to get that information. It takes them days or even weeks to track down the people that have that information and get it going. So make sure you have a handle on that, because I've also seen where people let their domain expire and suddenly their website and their email's down. And again, they don't know where it's registered, or they don't know what usernames and passwords. So a process that, number one, the problem should have never happened in the first place, but now that it did, instead of being resolved in a couple hours, it takes a couple days to resolve. So you cannot afford to let your internet properties go down like that. So make sure you know where your domain's registered, where your website's hosted, who your email provider is, all these sorts of things. And side tip, if you are using, as a business professional, a Gmail account or an AOL.com account or a Yahoo account, it's increasingly looking less and less professional to have those types of email addresses. So if you run a business, or if you're a professional entrepreneur, have a .com or a similar domain name and use that for your email. So we can talk more about that later. Before moving on to the next slide, I believe we have some questions.
Yeah, it looks like Mike Grimes raised his hand. Mike, did you have a question?
Now can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you now. Go ahead.
All right, no, I'm fine. I just hit it. I was trying to get the sound down, and I finally got it on.
Oh, gotcha. No problem.
No problem.
All right, go ahead, Marcel.
Got it. All right. Next. The next thing to look at is to use cloud and collaboration services. Now, this is the key to making your business agile and flexible. And that's really the key, is to use the technology to make your business adaptable to circumstances. And so cloud services are one of the best ways to do that. Cloud is a term that's often very confusing to people. No, it does not mean that things are actually up in the sky or anything like that. What cloud simply means is internet hosted. So, for example, probably the first cloud service most of us used was email. At the time, though, email didn't have this fancy name of cloud services. It's just what it was. It just means hosted. So don't worry too much about the term cloud. It simply means that things are hosted off site from your business. So for example, if your email if you don't have a server in your office for your email, well, then it's out in the cloud. That's all it means. So popular cloud services include file sharing services such as Dropbox, Google Drive, even services like Google Docs, QuickBooks Online are cloud services. The key is that because the data is not in your office, or I should say lives or is hosted in your office or on one computer, because it's in the cloud, then it means it's accessible from virtually anywhere. So that's the key there, is that if your data and your business information is accessible from anywhere in the world, then it allows work from home. It allows mobile work. So it's not just about this COVID era to where people are forced to work from home. The reality is that now that businesses have been forced to allow people to work from home, now that businesses have been forced to use cloud services, they're going to use that in much greater proportion going forward. And those businesses that embrace these technologies are going to be way ahead of the curve and are going to be more productive and more effective and more efficient than the businesses that still refuse to do so. So speaking of cloud services and speaking of being forced into things, collaboration tools are also another form of cloud services, such as what we're using now, Zoom. So Zoom was getting more popular prior to COVID, but obviously once people were required to work from home or work remotely, and people needed to be able to stay in touch, the use of Zoom-like services now are huge. And one of the things that was holding people back, I think, from using collaboration tools like Zoom was just the fear of the unknown, or the apprehension of the idea that people could effectively communicate using virtual platforms. Well, once again, that's been blown out of the water, because now everyone has been forced to do so. And in this last 2 months, basically, virtually every business professional on earth has had a crash course in using Zoom and or other collaboration tools. So now that basically myth that we can't effectively communicate over virtual tools is gone, look for the use of these tools to continue forward. So like I said, more people are going to be working from home, more people are going to be using these tools. And if you don't embrace them, you will be left behind. Before I move on, any other questions here? Doesn't look like there's anything, so we'll go on to my next slide. Finally, kind of reverting back to what I talked about earlier, is you need to sharpen your technology saw. And oh, we do have a question. All right, let me answer this question first before we move on here. Devin asks that his organization is developing a file management application in the AWS cloud. AWS stands for Amazon Web Services. What are some selling points I can make to clients so they can understand the confidentiality, integrity, and availability without having a technology background? It's going to depend really on your application, since if it's a custom application, you're going to have to assure your clients that you have done the requisite technology due diligence to make sure things are secured correctly. Most cloud services have a base level of encryption and security. You're just going to have to assure your clients that you've done the other due diligence is to create the application correctly so that it is secure. And that could require a lot more in-depth discussion as to how to do that. But primarily, number one, do have a good technology team that can give you that information and ensure you as the business or the organization that has been done, so then you can pass that to your clients. And certainly after this presentation, certainly any and all of you are welcome to contact me and talk about things in more detail. Whoops, back to that slide. So sharpening your technology saw, if any of you have read 7 Habits of, the 7 Habits as most people call it, the 7th step is sharpen your saw. And so in regards to technology, as I mentioned earlier, you have to commit to improving your business technology. And one of the ways to commit is to make improving your technology a part of your routine business process, as far as business review process. So if you review your business once a quarter, once a year, in between, whatever it is, you have to make technology a part of that. For every single business decision you make, you need to look at it from a technology perspective. This is the year 2020. To pretend that technology isn't as vitally important to your business as, say, cash flow or cost, profit and loss, that sort of things. Every business decision you make is made with an eye on those things. You need to also make business decisions with an eye on your technology. You need to continually look for ways to improve the way your business runs and how you use technology to make that possible. Anything before move on to the next slide? Looks like we're good. So a little more detail about that business process improvement. First thing you need to do is identify your business process opportunities. So what opportunities are there to improve processes and workflow, make them more efficient and productive? How can technology fit into that? So just look at your overall business process. Where are the bottlenecks? Where are things not running as smoothly as they could? Where are you observing that perhaps your competitors or other people in your industry are making use of things that are very beneficial to them? And start to develop an idea of where the technology could fit in to help your business. Next thing you need to do is gain an understanding of the past obstacles. So what has held you back from using technology to improve your business processes in the past? A lot of times it's fear or apprehension. People are worried that technology is going to make things more complex, or that I've heard this before, that we're going to become too dependent on technology. This is a year 2020. If you don't think you're dependent on technology, then you need to look again. And so a lot of times that other issues have been cost, or very simply just people don't know what they don't know. And so they freeze and they just don't do anything. You need to understand why you haven't taken advantage of technology in the past, what's holding you back, recognize those obstacles, and then figure out what you can do to move on. A lot of times it's just having that knowledge, having an advisor that can give you that knowledge, work with you to develop a plan, which is the final step here, is develop a plan and take action. So once you've identified the opportunities and you know why you haven't taken action before, work to remove those obstacles, develop a plan, work with your technology advisor to make that plan. And that's going to be dependent on your business, your industry, your personal workflow, a variety of things as to how to develop that plan and take action. But the bottom line is commit to making your business better through technology. Understand the opportunities, understand the obstacles, and then develop a plan and take action. And like I said, the important thing to recognize now is that because we've been thrown into 2 months basically of both feet in the fire using technology, once business starts rolling and these businesses that have the experience with these technologies are going to really make use of them, businesses that don't are going to be behind the eight ball. And so you need to start thinking now, while we still have some time left to ramp our businesses back up, what can you do to improve your business technology? And ultimately, it's more about improving your business processes and workflow than the technology itself. Technology is just a tool, but it's a very powerful tool, and you need to take advantage of it or be left behind. So that's it from me as far as my prepared presentation. So I believe we do have some questions now. Let me take a look here in the chat. All right. After a plan is created, what is a reasonable time to expect for total implementation? Well, that's going to depend on your business and the size of your business, the number of employees, the scope of the improvements. If we're doing something like, say, just setting up a new cloud-based file sharing system, if you don't have a ton of files, that could happen in an afternoon or less. If you have a lot of people that need to deploy to, whether it's computers in the office or computers that are going to be remotely used, it may take some planning, a few days of planning, and then some time to set an implementation date, and then the time whatever to implement. So the whole process could take a few weeks, or the whole process could literally take a day. Just depends mostly on your business and what you're doing with it. All right, any other questions? And Carol Sparks is asking, do I have a lead on any refurbished MacBooks? The best place to get refurbished Apple products is directly from Apple, because then you get them with a full warranty. Otherwise, the way Apple products in particular go, they tend to hold their value. So if you're buying a used Apple, you're generally not going to spend a whole lot less than a new one, and then you don't get the warranty. So get refurbished directly from Apple, although you probably even then won't necessarily save a whole ton of money. But that does bring up a good point that I was going to make earlier. When you're looking at your devices, honestly, in my experience as a technology professional, you really strongly need to look at Apple products for the number one reason that they are generally more reliable, easier to use. And when you're running a business, you just simply don't have time to mess with technology that's going to be less than reliable, that sort of thing. So when I mentioned 1990s technology, a lot of people still have in their head, and a lot of technology professionals are still very much stuck in that Microsoft Windows client server paradigm. And the world has moved on from that. Windows is still obviously still around, and a lot of people still use it, but you just need to, and I'm not saying don't use Windows, I'm saying is look at all technologies and give them a fair shake. You may be surprised as to what you can accomplish with other than Microsoft technology in this day and age. So Jenny had mentioned earlier that she couldn't do her business without Google Drive or Monday.com. Now, Monday.com is an example of a cloud service that is basically like a project management tool. It's also a collaboration tool in effect, because it allows people to work on a project together in a virtual platform and communicate on that project. And I'm sure Jenny could probably speak to it a little more in detail, but I know she uses it a lot to work with some of her podcast clients that really help people that are all over the country, possibly the world, collaborate on launching a podcast, which requires many moving pieces to all come together. And so that's an example of a cloud collaboration tool. All right, so we have another question. Any tips for creative marketing inside of this technology age? Increase visibility, more geographic locations, so outside the community. So in general, when I talk about technology, I say there are two main types of technology: the traditional IT, which stands for information technology, or infrastructure. That's one aspect of technology. So that includes computers, networks, devices, all those sorts of things, the traditional computer and network type of thing. The other thing that's big technology branch is marketing. So in this day and age of social media and all this sort of stuff, technology marketing is a big thing. So that's where, in addition to your infrastructure technology, as a business, you do need to look at technology marketing. So Tanya brings up a good question. Creative marketing it's a very broad term because there are many things you can do. And personally, as more of a IT technology infrastructure guy, I know about technology marketing, but I'm certainly not an expert. So I can put you in contact with people that are more experts in the technology marketing field for very specific and creative things to use. The thing to keep in mind there is that commit to things and commit to spending some money, because just like any marketing effort, it does take some money to really get things moving. In general, if you can do a blog, that's great. That's a low cost way to get a lot of information about your business out there. Focus on quality of content, give things away, give knowledge away so that people learn to trust you, and you will get more clients. But we can talk more later, and I can put you in touch with some more internet marketing experts that can really answer your questions in more detail. Another question is, what do you see being the biggest challenge businesses will face the next 6-12 months with technology going forward? Basically, the same challenge we've seen in the last 2 months is that there's a lot of people that had outdated technology, inferior internet connections. And so going forward, as businesses are trying to catch up to that, they're going to need to spend some money. They're going to need to look at what can they do to upgrade their technology. And the reality is that if you're an entrepreneur, it is your own business, it's all your personal technology. There's a blurry line between personal technology and business technology anymore. So the challenge may be for businesses to figure out, okay, so do I provide my employees with certain technology, or can they use what they have? Obviously, there's some security implications around that. But in general, in my personal train of thought is that most of us have things like smartphones and laptops, and there should be no reason we can't use our personal technology for business. But the question becomes then, if your employees have old technology, what do you do? Do you buy them something, or do you maybe give them some money to buy technology for themselves? It's more of a logistical question than a technology question, but ultimately we entered a holding pattern with the COVID crisis. Some companies were ahead of the game, others were behind the 8 ball. I think this trend is going to continue for a while as companies figure out what do they need to do. So if you are able to upgrade your technology, if you're able to get better internet service, that's really going to serve you well, because then you can go from those foundational issues more towards productive issues. Another question, do I think government will come out with any grants for upgrading technology or expanding broadband? I'm not aware of anything specific. I do know, I think as part of the PPP loans, you can use that for certain upgrades or services. So to some extent, maybe that way. Expanding broadband to outlying areas, like I mentioned earlier, the wireless companies are feverishly trying to deploy 5G. I think this crisis only going to light a little more of a fire to get that done. Unfortunately, there are are, it's not a fast process. It's a lot of literal physical build out of towers and radios and antennas and all this sort of stuff. Maybe they'll try to push it faster now. Maybe certain, government regulators will relax certain restrictions and maybe make it faster. That's about it. I think the best we can hope for it at this point. Other than that, I'm not aware of anything very, very specific. All right, another question. Okay. So Carol Sparks, our business attorney, says she was going to address this more in a few weeks, but if the employer allows the employee to use their personal devices, they may need to reimburse them for the use of the device, internet access, etc. I think that's, obviously, I'm not a legal expert, so I can't answer that definitively, but I think the way I've explained this to businesses in the past is that I think the trend is similar to that of company cars. It used to be a lot more common decades ago for companies to give their employees a company car. That practice is almost non-existent anymore, except in certain construction trades and that sort of thing, or as a bonus for corporate executives. And the reason is pretty much everybody has a car now, and the expectation is you need to get to work, you just drive your car, so that sort of thing. Now, obviously, there are mileage reimbursements and that sort of thing for wear and tear. So obviously, I don't think there's 100% right answer, but obviously the attorneys and business consultants would be able to better answer that for sure. But it is something to consider as far as buying technology for your business to give to employees, or just letting employees use their technology that they have. Okay. Megan would like to speak about the creative marketing side of things. So Megan, please feel free to jump in.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to it. When I think of kind of where we are in the technology age, right, as Marcel said, social is such a huge piece of that. And it is where you can find your target market so readily available. And Tanya had asked in terms of geographic location, absolutely, right? It allows you to get outside of your small kind of hometown market and potentially reach others, and especially if you can start to move your services more digitally from afar. So don't be afraid of social. The whole biggest attraction probably to it is that authenticity and that you being real. And not only can you, really do some of the paid advertising or, work with a brand manager to have a really spot on brand, you can also penetrate your services into the places where your ideal clients are playing by becoming a thought leader within their space. So for example, if you were to join a Facebook group to where there are many of your avatar, your ideal clients interacting and playing, if you interact and you provide value there and you become a thought leader within your line of work for that group, you're going to become their resource in terms of that help that they need. So there's kind of a way of kind of just giving your 2 cents, right, in terms of questions people are asking that can also help to drive your brand's relevancy all through social media, just by interacting socially with those that you would consider a part of your target market.
So Megan brings up a great point. It's all about trust. It's all about sharing the knowledge. And that's a lot of the advice I've heard over the years. And there are many ways to do that, including what Megan just mentioned. So Kurt has a question for me and Carol. So employees using their own device, are there limits employers can require and or inspect to verify security? So I'll answer that from the technical perspective. And I think, interestingly enough, I think it's been something that Carol and I have worked on together for her own business to some degree. So as an employer, if an employee is using their own device, there are technical ways to enforce policies. And when I say policies, that means actual just business policies, and then those policies translated into a technology package that literally will enforce those settings on devices. So ultimately, what I tell most businesses is that your security of your data should not be dependent on the devices that your employees are using. Your data and your systems should be secured in a way that even if an endpoint becomes compromised in some way, shape, or form, it really shouldn't affect your own security as far as things like malware and that sort of thing. One of the things you do need to do is make sure that endpoints are encrypted so that if devices are lost, data can't be easily recovered from those devices. So that's from the technology standpoint of things. I'll let Carol talk about, as far as, business policy or employee handbook type of things.
Perfect. I'll jump in. I hope everyone can hear me well. After 6 hours already of Zoom calls, my earbuds died. Couple of things. Let me just try to hit this. Yes, Marcel and I have worked together in my own firm to really take a look at the security, at the endpoints, things of that nature. We started our work together in 2018, and because of his partnership with my firm, when teleworking became a necessity, we were able to pick up and do that with only really a few hours of prep work on my end to make sure that everyone's devices that I had control and over passwords that no one. We went through and changed all the passwords so only I have those. Again, for the security and for that. If a device would be compromised. Yes, to answer Kurt's question, are there limits that the employer can require? Yes, of course. Let me back up and touch quickly on the business expense piece of it. And this is a new law change that happened in 2019. Many of my business clients are not truly aware of the change. Illinois leads the way with a few other states. Illinois' law on this is modeled after California. So we don't really have any good case law of employee reimbursements and what people are going to require of us in the future. But California started this new change and has a little bit more interpretation of how the courts have been applying the law. So the Illinois Wage and Payment Collection Act requires employers to reimburse the employees for all necessary expenditures incurred in the employee's scope of employment if they're directly related to the services performed for the employer. That means if I go home and use even an employer's laptop, but have to utilize my own internet service in order to hop on Wi-Fi, then that cost is reimbursable back to the employee, or maybe a pro rata share of that. So my recommendation for employers is develop a policy that, number one, sets limits. If in the event that you use your internet access because I have not provided it to you, I will reimburse you a per diem at X rate. Your X rate should be comparable to what is going on in the industry. If they have the best internet, that doesn't have to be your problem, but I would definitely use an average or a mean on what that reimbursable cost or expense would be. Other things, can they charge you for the use of their laptop? Sure. They could. My recommendation is that the employer create a policy to say what reimbursements they'll offer. And if an employee then chooses to use their device, then they're doing so under the conditions that have already been set forth by the employer. In my firm, I have required my employees to use my devices. I have, of course, some heightened confidentiality, attorney-client privilege standards. So ethically, I felt as though for my industry, it was the safest to provide those things. And I've even provided each of my employees a cell phone, a laptop, and their cell phone has hotspot. So that way they are 100% on anything that I have provided to them. My employees have asked, can I use my own internet? Yes, as long as it's locked. And I'm not going to reimburse you because I've offered you some. So those are the limits. The employer also can say, if you're going to charge me a reimbursement or an expense, the employers can create a policy that says you have to do that within 30 days of incurring the expense. Otherwise, no, I'm not coming back just because you're unhappy with me later. And now you're quitting, and now you want to give me a bill for $1,000. So, again, the act provides that employers have the ability to do that. They just physically need the express policy written with a 30-day requirement on that. So, Marcel?
That's pretty enlightening. I was not aware of that law, so that's why we have attorneys to inform us of those things. And again, that's why, similarly speaking, you need technology advisors to be able to help you with the technology side of things, because it is very confusing, or can be anyway. And I'm in the business, so I understand that. All right. Any other questions, or are we close to wrapping up?
Well, I'm going to go ahead and jump in. If you want to mute yourself, Marcel, please. All right. That way we don't get any feedback. Just as a reminder, because he and I are working in the same office, so our microphones pick up on each other. I also wanted to add in on the creative ways to get your business, and especially getting outside of your area. One of the ways that I've personally done that is through podcasting, because podcasting is literally accessible to anyone who has access to the internet anywhere. So if you are someone who can do business anywhere and offer your services or your products to people anywhere in the country or anywhere in the world, podcasting is an option for you as a creative technology that can help get your message out there, get you out there seen as the expert. So that is certainly that. As Marcel can tell you, he's in the process of launching a podcast right now. It is certainly technology driven, as well as a marketing piece for you as well. So there are conversations around that where you can talk to Marcel about the technology needed for podcasting. And then, he's got connections to help you get that launched. So that's just another option that people, would maybe think about, because a lot of people hear about podcasting, but they don't know how to get into it. So that's something that you can certainly talk to Marcel about. So Marcel has offered a free consultation. What was it, 30 minutes?
Yeah, a free 30-minute technology consultation for anyone that's participating in this webinar. And basically, we can talk a little more in depth about some of the generalities I talked about. Start you on a good technology plan, see where the opportunities are to quickly get you up to speed. The reality is, it doesn't always take a lot to get up to speed. It's depending, again, how big your business is and that sort of thing. So a little can go a long way, and I'm happy to share some knowledge and information and get you guys going on the right track. And as Jenny mentioned, I have recorded a few episodes already, and then we just need to launch the podcast. It is about working from home and about obviously the technology, but also about the people and about all the things that go around working from home, from a social standpoint, from a personal standpoint, from family to logistics, and again, technology, all that sort of stuff. So look for that soon. I will be publicizing it here in the next couple of weeks.
All right. Well, I'm not seeing any more questions here, either for our panelists or from the group. So thank you, everybody. Thank you to all our panelists this week for joining us. Next week is Joanne May as our presenter. Joanne, do you want to jump in and let us know the title of your topic and like a 30-second overview, maybe?
Sure. So I'm still working on things, but I think in general, my topic is moving forward and pivoting your business during these times and beyond. So just putting together some information and discussion on how we can all do that, not only technology, but in other ways as well.
Perfect. That's good to know. So everybody, all participants, you are welcome to join us next Wednesday, which will be May the 5th. 6th, sorry. Thank you. May 6th. May 6th at noon Central Time. Same bat channel, same bat time. Here you can join us. The replay of this recording can be found at levelupcoachllc.com. And there is a link up at the top where you can click on to get to the Now What Business series. There's a video from last week. This video right now will be available by tomorrow afternoon. So that way, if you want to go back and reference what was in there, as well as any information on that, or share it with somebody who couldn't make it today, we are still accepting registrants. We do still have room. We still have about 45 open slots for the remaining 4 seats that we have there. So Joanne is our presenter next week. After her, in 2 weeks, will be Carol. And the week after that will be Kurt. And then May 27th, which is the final Wednesday in May, I will be presenting on sales in the new era of business. So if you guys please go ahead and share with friends that you know who are entrepreneurs. We want to be here as your experts to be able to help you guys move forward from here. So thank you very much for taking time with us, and everybody have a wonderful Wednesday.
Thank you all for listening.